Hi, and welcome to Toni Time. Well, today, as you know, I've had pretty much all the council members on the show, but today we are honored to have the mayor on the show. His lovely wife was going to join us, but she had to work. So, Patty, we miss you. Alan, welcome.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Excellent.
So tell me, what's going on with you? I mean, we're not talking politics, really. We're staying away from that as much as we can.
That's good.
Yeah. So I want the audience to know everybody as people. I mean, I videotape the council meetings. You know, everybody is focused on doing things for the city.
Right.
So you get another version of everybody. And you've been you're a part of this whole Biddeford world for years.
Doing it a long time.
A long time. And now what made you become the mayor?
Let me backtrack.
Okay.
I don't think I always had an interest in politics, but after I graduated from college, a friend of mine by the name of David Redmond, who was a teacher at the high school and who worked for Governor Brennan for a while, asked me to run for the city council. And I think that was like back in 1976. And so I'm like, oh yeah, you gotta do it. So I did it. And I won by, I think, less than 10 votes.
Wow.
And that was after a recount. So then I served on the council for 18 years.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
And I really enjoyed it. You know, I just liked being part of the decision-making process. At the end of that, I had to stop because the people of Biddeford voted on a referendum to ban teachers from serving on the council.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I had to give that up. But that was okay because I went and got my master's. And then I decided to run for the Maine legislature. And I did that for 8 years. And towards the end of that, I became interested in the idea of running for mayor because I objected to the way the city was going in the direction. And so I've been doing that. This is starting my 8th year as mayor and having a ball.
I know. Now, you go back. I mean, you grew up in Maine, right?
I grew up in Biddeford, yeah.
In Biddeford.
Yeah.
Wow. So as a child, were you...
Still a child, by the way.
Oh,
That's what my wife tells me.
Well, I do know you like your chocolate.
I do. And ice cream and potato chips. And
all the good
all
stuff.
Health food.
All health food. So when you were a child, I mean, growing up in Biddeford, when I was growing up, I tell people, I didn't have really toys. I had a stick. And I did amazing things with the stick. It was my doll, it was this, it was that. What did you do? I mean, things were different.
Oh, they were very different.
Things were safer.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
I remember growing up a little bit on Summer Street, across from, or next door to Alex Pizza. But then in 1956, we moved to Graham Street, which my nephew Joel he owns that building now. But it was a real simple life because my parents didn't make a lot of money. My mother never worked during that time. My father made I remember seeing a check once, or IRS thing for like $7,000, and that was with 3 kids and his wife. But we played in the yard, and across the street were the Hool family. Dr. Hool, who was very well known in Biddeford, he had a lot of kids, and we were all friendly with them. So there was a neighborhood thing that was going on. I often tell people that we grew up in a cold water flat, you know, that we didn't have central heating, so the stove in the kitchen was a source of heating, and we only took baths once a week, no shower, baths, and you had to boil the water on the stove, and then my mother would pour it into the tub and mix it with cold water to get the right temperature.
Wow.
You know, and in the wintertime, some of the rooms where the doors were shut because the heat wouldn't reach all the way out there.
Yeah. Wow.
And we assumed that was normal.
Of course
it
you
was
did.
fine because I think everybody else that I hung around with, most of them anyway, had that same type of lifestyle.
Wow. So now, I mean, because did your mom work?
Only after I was out of college.
Okay.
Yeah, so she never worked when we were growing up.
What kind of work did your dad do?
He actually was into computers. He,
That was early on.
yeah, he was he handled these great big huge IBM machines, you know, with the little cards that you
Yeah, I
punch
remember
things in.
that. Yeah.
So he started off doing that in Pepperell, and then he went to a company called Maine Bonding and Casualty, which was in Portland, and ran the office there.
Wow, he was ahead of his time almost.
Yeah, what's amazing is that I look at this room, and there were probably more machines that even in this room itself, and yet my phone's got more power than all those machines put together today.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's scary.
Amazing.
Actually.
It's scary.
Yeah,
What do you think of social media?
I call it anti-social media because while it serves a purpose, way too often people use it to denigrate or attack or things of that nature, and you know I think it polarizes people more than bringing people together now.
I agree. I agree. Because people can interpret things so wrong.
They can, and I think people feel more bold when they're behind a keyboard or
They do.
behind their phone. But you would say things that way you would never ever say to someone to their face.
Exactly, exactly. Like nowadays with you know, social media, and you've got your tweeting and you've got all this stuff. I mean, anybody who's a good person can be destroyed in 5 minutes on the internet. You know, people have that kind of freedom, which is scary.
And the other thing, the flip side of that is too often people, when they read something, they believe it without even questioning the source.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes, for example, you know, I'll read something about me, I'm like, I never said that, or I never did that, or
Yeah,
whatever, and all of
yeah.
a sudden all these people are piling on, and it's like, good God, you know, it's just one person will say something and everybody jumps to a conclusion that that's the way it is.
Well, you know, I've always said you've got your groups of people, the followers, the leaders. And if people go and jump on things, that's scary these days.
Yeah, yeah, and then I was reading the other day about how it's getting so much more complicated that with technology now, they could actually take images of you or me or whatever, run them through a computer software program, and have you or me saying things that we never actually said. Yeah. So as a general person, you know, how are you going to know 5 years from now or 10 years from now whether something that you're seeing that in the past, well, yeah, that's a real picture or that's a real video,
Yeah.
that it's real?
Yeah, you won't know.
No.
You won't know. It's going to be smoke and mirrors
Yeah.
all the way. So going back to your childhood, which I find interesting because you grew up in Maine. You have a brother, I know that.
Yes.
Do you have any other siblings?
I had a sister. She passed away back in 1970.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, she had a brain tumor. She was in the 3rd grade,
Oh, wow.
which is kind of interesting because I just saw her teacher, Mrs. Levike, a couple days ago at Hannaford. I hadn't seen her in a number of years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's going back.
yeah.
So now, I mean, when did you decide you wanted to be a teacher?
In high school, I belonged to the Future Teachers of America. So at that point in time, I was thinking about it. But then when I got to college, I got really involved in psychology, and I really, really liked that. And the teacher thing kind of went into the background. And then I think my senior year in college, it was my senior year in college, suddenly I became infatuated with the idea of becoming a teacher, so I started taking all these courses. You know how senior year is supposed to be your easy year?
Yeah.
I was taking, I think one semester I took 21 credits, the other one I took 23.
Oh my goodness.
And to get all the different history courses or whatever. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So you became a teacher, a history teacher, correct? Yeah. Okay. Because I'm learning this stuff as we're going along, so I'm asking questions because I want to know.
Test you after.
Oh, okay, good.
Teacher mode.
Okay, all right. So apparently you like history.
I did in high school. I despised it.
Then what made you become a history teacher?
Because I took some history colleges at the University of Maine in Orono, and I remember like one, there was a guy, Professor Smith, and I remember his opening lecture, the world's going to be taken over by insects, and I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? This is a U.S. history class. And then he went through that, and he started immersing all these different facts, and I'm like, whoa, I never learned that in high school. You know, different bits and pieces, and so the more I learned about history through him and some of the other teachers, I became interested in like the Civil War with Bruce Catton stuff, and so I thought I could translate what I was learning into a better format for high school students. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Just because of that one teacher.
Yeah, it just totally changed me.
It takes, I hear that all the time.
And I took the course because I had to. It was a requirement. It was like,
I hear that so many times. One teacher can make a difference.
Yeah.
In one child's life.
Yeah, he was a character. I mean, it was fun.
So, you know, because I've seen you out and about, and people, you know everybody, number one, because you've taught their children.
Somewhere over 2,000 kids. So,
Oh my God.
yeah. Of course, they're not kids anymore. I just saw one of my hockey players turn 50, and I'm like, oh my God, if he's 50, what am I?
Oh boy. But you have such a history with everybody that I mean, not everybody in Biddeford, but I'd say good 75%, wouldn't you?
I have quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, you've got quite a few. So when you were teaching, what child stuck in your mind, or what couple children who really took you to your task?
There's one that always sticks out, and he was a real difficult student, and you know, every day sometimes I dread him coming in because he just was so obnoxious and just disrespectful, you know, and so forth. And I remember in June of that, I think he was a junior at the time, June that year, it was over, like, right, he's gone. So that year, my cousin Ron Gagnon and I, we somehow got involved in doing a survey for adult education. So we had to go and knock on every door in the city of Biddeford and asking people what courses they would like to take in adult ed. Mm-hmm. So we were on Summer Street, again near Alex Pizza, and I remember knocking on this particular door and walking inside the hallway area and just overcome by this sense of smell. It was just terrible. And I looked, and there was a garbage can all full of ears of corn, half eaten, and some of them were on the floor. I mean, this is July,
yeah,
and so it was hot. But we were tough, right? We're probably 19 years old. Knocked on the door, and that kid answered the door. And his eyes got this big, and I suspect my eyes got this big, and I stuttered, Mama, here too. And all of a sudden, I heard the father yelling and swearing at him in general about who's at the blah, blah, blah door. And I realized at that point in time, because this was 10 o'clock in the morning,
yeah,
why that kid was acting out, because he was going home to that every single day.
Wow.
So that always stuck out in my mind. And so in terms of teaching, I always tried to, you know, when kids were acting up or whatever, trying to think about, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, there's always a reason of some sort, especially with kids when they come in.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to go back to the parents.
Yeah.
Wow. That would stick out in my mind, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Don't you find, though, that once you gain the trust of children like that, they're like a sponge. They absorb.
Oh my God, that's the other thing I learned about teaching, that if you make them feel important, you know, and give them some attention, you got them.
Yeah.
And sometimes, most of the time actually, I did that with humor. But
Humor works.
Oh my God, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my tool in the classroom. I mean, just a joke here and there or whatever it happened to be. But you could take any kids, and I remember one kid telling me, you know, Mr. Casavant, I know that you really like me because you're always making fun of me. And I never made fun in a bad way,
Yeah,
but it
no.
was just this type of teasing, which I still do, I guess, actually. But anyway, yeah, that's how you'd bond with these kids. And some kids didn't need that because they were getting it home, but there were a lot of hungry kids emotionally that needed to know that they were special, that somebody actually cared about what was going to happen to them.
Yeah, and that's all they need.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you were teaching, and I think just at that time, social media was coming in. Am I wrong?
Towards the tail end.
Towards the tail end, because then you had more communication.
Yeah.
Kids talked to each other, kids played. And now it's a different group of children who don't really communicate.
Oh, no. No, they can't read body language or tone or things of that nature. They miss that a lot.
Well, I want to go back for a second. You took up psychology.
Yeah.
What drew you to psychology, then history? But
another teacher.
Really?
A guy named Professor Saldanha. And he was Portuguese, and he'd always start off his lecture, "Where was I?" He had this heavy accent, and he had this way, somebody would tell him where he left off, and bam, he would go off on the lecture for the next hour. And I was fascinated by that. And then there was one day when I cut class. It was an 8 o'clock class, and I'm not a morning person. Even getting here was tough. But anyway, I cut class, and I used to sit in the back row of a lecture hall and take my notes. And sometimes it was kind of funny because I'd study and I'd notice my line, because I fell asleep and all of a sudden my pen would go off the paper. But anyway, so he's coming across the mall area and I'm walking and all of a sudden he stops in front of me and goes, "Where was you?" I'm like, "I'm going to the 11 o'clock class. I was sick this morning," you know. But he had this photographic memory. He was fascinating. And I remember taking another course from him later on because I asked him specifically, how is it? Because his lectures were always the same. And in fact, I checked it off from his 8 o'clock to his 11. I went to 2 one day.
Wow.
It was the same lecture, no notes. And so I asked him, "How can you do that?" He says, "Sleep thinking." Excuse me? He says, "When I go to sleep at night, I put a thought in my head, and when I wake up, it's there." I tried that for 30 or 40 years. When I put his thought in my head, it's gone in the morning.
It's gone in the morning.
But he was brilliant. And so I was fascinated by his interpretation of psychological theory and those types of things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, Alan, it's a lot. Now let's move a little forward here. You met your lovely wife. Now, from what I hear, Patty was a teacher also?
No, she was a nurse.
Really?
Yep.
The rumors are all wrong, Patty.
Social media.
Social media. I thought she was a teacher too.
No.
So she was a nurse?
Yes.
So how'd you two meet?
Actually, online.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because she's from Fort Kent.
Okay.
She's from Fort Kent and moved in the Portland area, somewhere along the line. But yeah, we met online.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just one of those random things, I remember doing that online stuff and I was like, man, this is not for me. And she was like the last person. I was like, wow, she's special. So,
yeah.
And yeah.
And you got married a couple years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yeah. And you have no children.
No, she's got 2.
Oh, great.
So I got 2 stepkids.
Good. And I think I remember you saying you became a grandfather?
Yes. Yeah. 2 grandchildren.
Wow. How's it feel?
It's cool. I mean, they're great kids. They're fun. Just great personalities.
And they call you Grandpa or Sparky?
No. They don't call me Mr. Mayor either, so I'm not sure.
Darn.
It's Pepe.
Oh, Pepe. Okay. Yeah, I have to get, as long as I've lived here, and I moved here in 2006,
Yeah.
I have to get used to that.
That's a Franco thing. I had my Meme and Pepe. And
Yeah. I'm used to grandfather, grandmother, Oma.
yeah.
That sort of thing. So whenever I hear it, I have to stop for a minute, even now.
See, that's one of the reasons when I got involved in the Franco things because there were so many kids that called their grandparents Mama and Pappy, but had no idea why.
Yeah.
They didn't even know they were Franco. And so I thought that was rather curious, rather interesting. And so I began to become more and more involved with the whole Franco culture.
Okay, get me involved, because, I'm ashamed to say I've been here over 10 years. The Franco, my assumption is French people. Am I wrong? Or?
Nope, French-Canadian.
French-Canadian.
Yep.
So the Franco people moved here. And then that's why we have, in May, our event, or June, the Franco, help me.
Kermesse, La Kermesse, to put in the right accent on it.
Yes. Yeah, because I didn't realize there was such a strong hold.
Oh my
of
God,
Franco.
yeah. When I was growing up, French was spoken everywhere. My Mayor Casavant never learned to speak English.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, when I go to her, it was, she would say, "Ma beau Alain." That was her introduction to me. But we communicated. I never learned French because my mother couldn't speak French, so my dad never spoke French in the home. Even though my mother's maiden name was Chenard, which is Franco,
Yeah.
but my grandfather Chenard married someone that was English-Irish, so there was no
Wow.
French in that home. But yeah, so French was everywhere. And the Francos came here in the 1800s, to work in the mills. And in my office at City Hall, there's a portrait of my Meme and Pepe Casavant. There's a wedding picture that goes back to 1916 or 1917.
Wow, Alan.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm still learning.
Oh, you got to go to Quebec City.
never
Immerse
been there.
yourself.
I've never been there.
Oh my God. Great food, great chocolate.
Great chocolate. Okay.
But the food is wonderful, and the people are just really, really nice.
I'll have to put it on my list.
Yeah, and architecturally, it's beautiful.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of that. So now that you're mayor, we're moving forward, because I want people to know you're a real person.
Well, sometimes I'm unreal, but
But you know what? You have such a big heart, Alan. And you work so hard, and you've got a good group up there on the console.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own opinion. But everybody, I notice, respects everyone's opinion.
The council is very civil towards each other, and they never take it personally.
No.
And so we disagree. I don't get everything I want. Not that I have a lot of power. Over the last 10 years, 15, 20 years, the power or authority of the mayor has been stripped away bit by bit by bit.
Yeah.
So I don't have much, but we all get along, and everyone wants to do what's best for the city of Biddeford, but their path is different.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I've learned so much being there. And listening to everyone's point of view, watching everybody's reaction, because I'm one who watches the body language and the reaction and everything. And I noticed there is, across the board, a respect.
Yeah.
Which is really nice to see.
And it's also an unpredictability. In councils, like I said, I served on the council for 18 years. In some of those councils, you would know exactly how people were voting, and pretty much people would vote in a block. Sometimes John McCurry's my council president, we sit next to each other, we'll be talking, saying, well, we're trying to figure out how a vote's going, because we assume certain people are going to vote a certain way, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, that didn't go the way we thought at all.
Right.
Because there's no pattern. The alliances and the votes are not always the same, which is refreshing.
Yeah.
Because that means they're thinking things through.
Well, I see that, and I've had quite a few of them on the show, and I was surprised because everybody comes from a different thought pattern, as we all do, and our thought pattern comes from how we've lived our life, what we've experienced.
Yep.
Jim Bennett knows everything about everything.
He's remarkable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Him and Brian, they can go right in there. And no matter what you bring up.
There's a lot of experience there, so a lot of things they've seen that we may not have seen, so they can kind of unravel it.
I know.
And they're meticulous about lining up their facts.
Oh, they are. Yeah. They are, definitely.
We're lucky to have both of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now tell me, since you become mayor and before you were mayor and on the council, how do you see Biddeford today? The growth that you've already accomplished.
It was pointed out the other day at one of the more recent meetings how everything that people assume is true about Biddeford is wrong. So for example, there was a study done, I don't know, 2015 or so, that said the Biddeford downtown is going to continue to degrade. Wrong. Biddeford will continue to get older. Wrong. I mean, you name it, they're wrong on it.
Yeah.
And so here we are today with a Biddeford. The stereotype, for example, is that Biddeford is this old mill town with a lot of memes and pepes. No, the median age is 35. Mm-hmm. In the downtown, the median age is 29.
Right. We're
the youngest city in Maine. And of course, the downtown is building up. The mill area is building up. And so there's been a paradigm shift in terms of what Biddeford was and what Biddeford is today. It's pretty cool.
I've seen a change in the time I've been here.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen a big change. In fact, I don't know if it was on the weekend news on Channel 6. Each week they do a story on the mills.
Yeah.
We were the first ones. Our mills came up, the Biddeford Mills. This is what they're doing. I thought it was good PR. I don't know if you saw that or knew it.
I didn't see that.
Very good.
I mean, you look at the mills. I mean, growing up, they were just this monolith of brick and cement that we as kids never knew what was going on in there. Everything was walled off. So, for example, the falls that everybody raves about today that you have access to, we never really saw.
Right.
Most of our parents worked there, our relatives worked there. And they worked there for a long time. I mean, some of these people worked in the mills for 40, 50 years. Yeah. And here today, you get all types of different entities, businesses and restaurants, and you name it. It's like, who would have predicted that 25, 30 years ago? Not me.
No, not at all. I mean, it definitely is. I see a lot more people walking around that I didn't see before. And I see people now, like City Theater, which is, I was in there a couple years. It's a beautiful theater.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And did you mention they're thinking about enlarging or?
Well, there's some issues with the theater because they've been selling out so often.
Yeah.
There are limitations in terms of the physical structure itself. In other words, concession stands are inadequate, the bathrooms are inadequate, the lobby area is inadequate. There's just too many people.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the stage is so small that they only can have limited productions because it doesn't allow them to build sets for the next coming event until the production shut down because they got to build it on stage. So there's conversation about maybe doing some sort of expansion and not renovation, but expansion, and allowing those areas to get bigger so that it can handle the interest and the number of people that are showing up.
That would be great.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love that theater and I love the productions. I mean, people rave about it, but so for example, musical events are limited. So like during Winterfest, we had Joe Boucher, who is a former Biddeford resident and someone I knew when he was a little kid. He came with his band, doing some Beatles stuff. It sold out.
Oh,
he was there last year. It sold out. So people are looking forward to those types of things, and I think having music there would be very appropriate.
It would be.
Yeah.
Definitely. Speaking of Winterfest, it was a success.
it was a success. It was fun, and you know, that's one of those things that, you know, people see it, but they don't understand or realize how there's a small core of volunteers that make it happen. You know?
Yeah.
Just, it's just amazing how so for example, the sledding hill was constructed by members of the New Life Church, and it was engineered by Larry Patuan, who's on the planning board. But every year, those guys show up and do this, donating their heavy equipment, you know, their time, their expertise, because they like Biddeford and want to do something for the kids.
I think that's great.
I mean, to me, that's the one thing that hasn't changed about Biddeford. There's still this small town feel to it in which people want to give back.
Yeah.
You know, I wish more people wanted to give back, but can't have everything, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I heard it was success. Everybody had a good time.
Oh, yeah.
It was wonderful. And so now, I mean, City Theater, it would be great. I mean, do you think they can expand a little bit to?
I think so.
Good.
Yeah, it's going to cost some money.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about the possibility of fundraising and getting grants and things of that nature.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. Because then it's almost like anybody could come in, rent the theater, a destination point, which would be great.
It's a destination point for many. I mean, a lot of people, from what Mark Nahorny told me, and he's the chairman of the theater, are from away. And they come here because there's been so many write-ups throughout New England about the productions at that theater. And so when they come here, they also dine in the downtown and, you know, sample the foods in our various restaurants.
Yeah, see, that's all good.
Yeah. And I can tell you I've sampled all the restaurants too.
I'm sure.
Part of my job description.
Is it?
Yep.
Oh, and all the desserts, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
I only eat the fat-free stuff. I always ask, is this fat-free? And I always tell them how to respond to make sure they say yes, so I can feel good about myself.
You're so good. You're so good. And they'll go, no, that chocolate cake is fat-free.
Exactly.
Love it, Alan. We're running out of time. I can't believe it went so fast.
It does. It flies.
It does fly. Yeah. But, you know, I just really wanted people. Well, before I forget, I met with someone on Saturday at Elements.
Uh-huh.
And this is a girl who lives in Portland, and we were having a meeting at noon. And I said, well, I'll meet you halfway. I'll meet you in South Portland. She says, no, I've heard a lot of good things about Biddeford, and my husband and I want to come down there and walk around. And she said, I haven't been there in years. I want to see. So I met her at Elements. We had coffee, and she says, I can't believe the change here. And that is just kind of like out of the clear blue sky. So you've got a lot of people like that. It's going, I've heard things have changed.
It's changed. Sometimes I think the people of Biddeford don't recognize it because
you're right in the middle of it.
It's incremental.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I remember when I was teaching, there was a guy named Joe Cruddo who was a psychology teacher before I taught psychology there. So, and he was a student teacher when I was in high school. But anyway, I remember him talking about something like this, and he was saying, you know, Alan, it's like looking in a mirror. If you have the mirror right here, you can't see your face, you got to pull it back. And so for all the different changes that are taking place, if you're living here, sometimes you're missing it, but if you're from away, you see the greater dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. The write-ups we've had have been very good, and then seeing that over the weekend on the news about our mills and them talking about, you know, there's apartment living in there, condo living, there's a restaurant. It's just great PR on everything.
I mean, what Doug Sanford has done on the mills just has been remarkable.
Yeah.
And of course, the Lincoln Street Mill, it's coming along now. They got the financing. They're ready to roll by spring. You know, you got a bunch of other mills out back. I mean, if you think about the possibilities.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Paradigm shift.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Alan, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Really appreciate it.
I got to tell you, my dogs are missing me at the moment, but
so are mine. So are my 3.
They were looking at me like, where are you going now?
You have 1 or 2?
Oh, I got 2.
Oh, I've got 3.
Well, I was told that having 2 dogs was easier than having 1.
It is.
That's not true.
Alan, it is true. How old are they?
One's 8 years and the other one is 19 months.
All right. Well, after, they calm down and the older one teaches.
Well, so far the younger one is like a Tasmanian devil.
You know what I heard? Catnip.
Catnip?
I'm not kidding. It's true, audience. True. Friend of mine, Lori, who I went to high school with, is a cat person. And a puppy came over to visit her. Well, the puppy's owner came over to visit her. And the little puppy was playing with all the catnip toys. So it got real calm. So Lori went online. She Googled it. Catnip has the opposite effect on dogs than on cats. It's like they just mellow out. And so I called my vet. I Googled it. It's an herb. It doesn't hurt your animal at all. The vet said, no, it's okay. So now I sprinkle catnip on my dog's food.
Oh, wow.
And they just kind of go, oh. No?
I'm going to try that maybe. It might create peace of mind, when I see my dog suddenly hurdling the ottoman or whatever it happens to be, comes flying into my chest out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Try it. It's not going to hurt them.
Tasmanian devil.
Not going to hurt them. Try a little catnip on the food. So on that note, Martha Stewart over here gave the tip for cats. But thank you again, Alan.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, it's been great as always, and I want to thank the audience for watching our show today. I hope you had as much fun as Alan and I did, talking about everything. And have a good day. Have a good week. Bye-bye.